In 2012, I arrived in Barbaresco, where for the first time I bought some grape and made my first Nebbiolo from Barbaresco grape. We began making wine in a garage. It was really the garage of my house. And you can imagine how happy my neighbors were. And then in 2013, I met Gabriele. He had an amazing vineyard, but we used to sell the grape. In 2013, we decided to join together and start making some microvinification. In 2015, we released our first vintage. This year, basically, is going to be a vintage number 10, and I'm super happy doing what I love.
Welcome to this special Clubhouse session of the Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as members of the Italian wine community engage in fascinating conversations about contemporary wine topics. If you enjoyed the show, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. And remember to subscribe and rate the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your pods.
Hi everyone, my name is Beatrice. Welcome to Italian Wine Clubhouse Ambassador's Corner. Our Clubhouse has been ranking the top amongst Italian wine podcast shows. The show's concept is to let Italian wine ambassadors have the opportunity to interview their favorite producers. This is an episode that gives them a free hand to ask any questions to their selected producer. This session is recorded and will be released in Italian Wine Podcast to reach more listeners, and especially for those who cannot participate due to time zone differences. Our guest host today is Alberto Rivera. Alberto embarked on his journey in the world of wine after concluding his service as a diplomat at the Mexican Embassy in Japan. He began his career by developing a private wine collection and hosting exclusive tastings for a discerning clientele. Following the successful completion of the Italian and French program of the Wine Scholar Guild, he was appointed Italian wine director for Wikivinos, a Latin American online platform where he lectured to emerging wine professionals, seeking to deepen their knowledge of Italian wine and its cultural context as a tool to enhance their sales strategies. In 2024, Alberto was admitted to the prestigious Vinitaly International Academy in Verona, where he successfully passed the rigorous examination to become an Italian wine ambassador. It's really vigorous. I was there. It's really tough. He also holds the title of Langhe Wine Ambassadors. Today, he serves as a consultant for Italian specialized restaurants in Chihuahua and the northern region of Mexico, advising on wine selection and curating programs that highlights Italy's rich viticultural heritage. Today he's going to interview Stefano Campaniello of Morra Gabriele winery in Piemonte. So, Alberto, Stefano, how you doing, my guys?
I'm doing amazing. What about you, Beatrice and Stefano?
I'm doing fine. It's a little bit on the warm side today, but I'm fine. Thank you. How are you doing, Stefano?
Ciao Beatrice, ciao Alberto, very nice talking to you.
Wonderful. So Alberto, are you ready for our 3 ritual questions?
Of course, Beatrice, more than ready.
Perfect. How did you discover the wines of Gabriele Morra?
Well, in 2023, during a visit to the Langhe, a mutual friend took me for a lunch at Campaniello, an osteria in the heart of Barbaresco where Stefano was working as sommelier. I asked her to help me find his wine once I returned to Mexico, and she did. Earlier this year, while attending the Langhe Wine Ambassador course in Alba, I had the chance to taste his wine again. That experience confirmed my first impression. Stefano and his partner created wines that speak not only to new drinkers searching for a history, but also to those who value deep knowledge of terroir and innovative techniques within a traditional region such as the Langhe region.
So tell us, why did you select Stefano as your featured producer?
Well, it is important to highlight young voices on a platform like the Italian Wine Podcast, especially when they bring new perspectives to the wine world. Stefano's
Thank you
wines
for
are a clear example
inviting
of
me.
this. They
I
show
really
how
appreciate the word
contemporary
that you just been saying.
ideas
I think
can live
you
alongside
perfectly covered
tradition
the
and how the
soul
Langhe
and
can
my
continue
feeling
to
about the
evolve
winemaking.
while staying true
So
to its
it's also a
What
roots.
very
are the
exciting
learning
time for
objectives
me
that we
now.
should
We
expect
are
from this
pretty closer
interview?
to the Chardonnay harvest.
First of
We
all, we will
expect
talk
to
about
begin the
how
Chardonnay harvest in
Stefano's
like 3 to 4
international
days.
experience as a
Amazing weather
sommelier
in the last few
has
weeks. We
helped
had
him build
about 10
his
days of
career as a
heat wave,
winemaker.
so
We
the
will
grape are
also see
looking
how a
beautiful, very
young
healthy.
wine
So
professional
far, we
can
keep a finger
start a
crossed.
new
Wow,
journey
that
in
sounds amazing.
winemaking
And let's
while
start with a
still
short
keeping the
introduction,
traditions of
Stefano.
one
Could you
of
tell us a
Italy's
little
most
bit about
prestigious
yourself
wine
and what
regions.
role Cantina
Secondly,
Morra
we will
Gabriele to
discover
play,
through
please?
Stefano's
So
wine knowledge how
basically,
he
I'm
presents the
the
lesser known
winemaker
traditional
and
grapes
also the
of the
co-founder
Langhe
of
to
Morra Gabriele
customers
Winery in
who
Barbaresco.
usually
So we're
only know
speaking in
Nebbiolo.
Langhe
And
region.
finally, we will
Today,
discuss
I'm
how
almost 42
Stefano's
years old.
passion for
I
wine
was
allows
raised in
a young
Milan,
professional
and between the
like
20
him
to
to bring a
30s,
fresh,
I went working
contemporary
in
style of
France, in
wines to the
Spain, and in
Langhe.
London.
We
I
will
was working
also look
in
at the
vineyard and in
future
hospitality
of
as well. At that time, my
winery
dream was
Morra
to make
Gabriele
my own
and its
wine. But then,
exciting
when you are
new
20,
projects.
'That
25, you have a
sounds
lot of
like a
dream, you have a
really
lot of
nice
things in your
plan. So
mind.
it's time
So
for
it
me
took
to
me a
mute
little bit of
myself,
time, but I always
and I'm
felt
turning over the
like
floor to you, Alberto.
working
Have a nice
like a
interview,
sponge
guys.
to get
Thank you,
as much as possible
Beatrice.
to get to
Ciao
understand
Stefano,
what's the secret
come va?
behind a fine
Ciao
wine and not
Alberto,
working for
all
the sake of
good,
money.
thanks.
They gave me a really big vision of the worldwide wine, not just the old world, but also the new world. So when I came back to Italy, I was 27. I had still 2, 3 experience around Italy, one in Veneto, one with a chef from Marche. And in 2012, I arrived in Barbaresco, where for the first time I bought some grape and made my first Nebbiolo from Barbaresco grape. We began making wine in a garage. It was really the garage of my house. And you can imagine really how happy my neighbors were. And then in 2013, I was working in a restaurant. During the day in a vineyard, in the evening, I work in a restaurant in the Roero side. I met Gabriele. They became a friend of mine. He had an amazing vineyard, but we used to sell the grape. So, of course, I wanted to have the vineyard to rent, but there was no way because I was a foreigner. So, at the end of the growing season in 2013, we decided to join together and start making some micro vinification. We were looking to understand what's the potential of the vineyard, what kind of fruit comes out, what kind of wine we like to do. So, we came to a point where in 2015, we released our first vintage. This year, basically, is going to be vintage number 10, and I'm super happy. I'm doing what I love, so I feel to be a very lucky person. I make wine, typical wine of the region. So I like to say that my wines are traditional and contemporary, like you were saying before.
Yeah, of course, and congratulations for your 10th anniversary of being a producer in the Langhe region. That sounds amazing. And well, this is my next question. How was it to move from working as a sommelier on the floor to working in the vineyards and the winery as a winemaker? Did you face any challenges during this transition? And I will add another question. So I didn't know you were from Lombardy or Milan or Milano. So how is from being, I don't know, an outsider, because I have heard that sometimes when you are an outsider, it's hard to produce wine. So how is it to work?
So, first of all, I will say hospitality is something that has a lot of common with winemaking. Hospitality is very much underrated work, but it's one of the most difficult and one of the most amazing because actually you are handling with people, and every table you have in front of you, you don't know who's sitting on the table. So you never know with who you're talking to. And working with hospitality, actually, your job is to make people happy. That's what hospitality is all about. The reason because we are coming back to a place is because we felt good, is because there were people looking after us, because maybe there's a value for money. So it can be different reason. I still remember one of the most beautiful things I was feeling when I was working in hospitality was showing up at the table with a wine list on my hand. But actually, the customers didn't even need to open the wine list because they were just leaving everything up to me. So that can, when you have a kind of feeling of the people that you have in front of you, you are comfortable in the job you're doing. And you also need to consider the hospitality give you chance to drink a lot of wine, also the same wine in different vintages, and consider that you may drink also wine that most of the time maybe you can just look at the picture online on a newspaper or maybe just read about it. So I was really lucky, and that gave me especially a huge freedom, a huge vision to understand more the focus of what kind of wine I will produce. At the age of 20, I was working in a restaurant outside Milan. At that time, I was owned by one of the most iconic Italian importer. And through them, I got a job in France and I went working in a vineyard. At that time, I was not trained in viticulture or winemaking, so I was like in stage. And it was an amazing experience. Same happened in Spain. Then when I moved to London, I've been in London for 4 years, first working for an Italian restaurant. And then I understood, of course, working with Italian, living with Italian, your English is not really improving a lot. Then I pushed myself. I left the comfort zone. I went working for a 2 Michelin star restaurant, a French restaurant, where still today there's one of the 3 people I will say they influencing me the most. He was a guy that really made me taste blind lots of wine. So it gave me a chance to open up my mind and taste different wines, understanding, and also having a real point of view. You know, very often you are influenced by the label. So when I decided to really quit hospitality, because actually, as you said, we met for the first time in Barbaresco, and until a few years ago, I was still working in hospitality. At the beginning, it wasn't easy because you know hospitality is also very very tough job. You're working a lot of hours, you have a lot of stress. Sometimes you need to be a psychologist, sometimes you need to be a comedian, but then at the end of the day, your level of attention, it needs to be always very very high. And that also give you the power when you're making wine. Do not just let the things going on, you know, because at the end your wine is like your child, is like your dog, your pet. It's something that you care because you've been working for the whole year. And you know, we all think a winemaker or wine producer, it's an amazing life because people traveling around the world, showing the wine, eating beautiful restaurant, meeting a lot of people. That's for sure the beautiful part. But it's also a very tough job because you're waking up at 5:30, 6 in the morning, working under the heat or maybe under the rain, and then you're working with the natural, so you never know. It's not something that you can predict. It's something very tough because the soil is very low. It's a physical job, but it's also a very brainstorming because in winemaking there is no recipe. Every year is different, and this is the beauty. So what I'm talking about, Alberto, is about artisanal wine. I'm not talking about million bottle production. Today we produce about a bit less than 30,000 bottles, no cases, split it in 6 labels. And I will say, Gabriele and I, we always share the same idea of making very traditional wine from traditional grape with a contemporary approach. I failed to be an happy drinker, so I wanted to make a wine for drinkers. But at the same time, I never felt making the wine for the market. I came to this idea because when I was working in hospitality, every time I had some time off or there was chance to have a wine trip, I was one of the most exciting guy. It doesn't matter what is the price of a bottle of wine, but I want to buy 3. Because first I will drink it straight away. The second, because maybe the first one is cooked. And the third one, it would be the one I keep it for aging. So having the curiosity and the willing and being humble also to never settle, they give you the freedom to make the wine that you love to drink. So don't make the wine for the market, but make the wine that you love, and then find the people who loves your wine too. That is the most beautiful thing, because in life you always come to compromises, but then if you do what you love, then you're making something very special.
Yeah, of course. And you produce Memorie, a co-fermented blend of Nebbiolo and Freisa aged in cement tanks. How would you present this wine to a traditional customer who mostly knows Nebbiolo in a traditional way, or in a, let's say, Languedoc, not necessarily Barolo or Barbaresco?
Well, thanks for the question. Actually, Memoria is our everyday wine. That means it's a wine very fruity and aromatic in the nose, crispy as well. The Fraser gives a lot of strawberry and sour cherry aroma. In the mouth, it's very easygoing with just a touch of tannins. So it's a very approachable. And when I say everyday wine, it's like it's a wine that you don't need to think much about. You know, I'm like one of the most of the Italian. I love football, and most of the time I watch football with some friends, and you don't really want to drink Barbaresco or something big all the time. So we thought like making a kind of pizza wine, a kind of like a dolcetto, something that you want to just open, have a glass of lunch or have a glass of dinner and finish the bottle in 1 or 2 days. And the beauty of Memoria is also that the wine is made in concrete. You know, concrete nowadays, it's an amazing tool because it's very helpful for the winemaker, but also to consumer. It gives a very fruity, crispy, and approachable wine. So when I look at Memoria, Memoria is usually the wine that you will enjoy on the balcony or on the terrace with some friends, sipping a glass, having some music in the background, and then just enjoy a good time.
Yeah, I tasted Memorie in February this year, and it was lovely. So
Thanks a lot. I
yeah,
really appreciate
delicious.
it. I speak very easily about my wines because, I put all my heart in it, and all of them are like sons. So, something amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I will take back this comment you said about the cement tanks. So for our listeners who are not familiar with Langhe, could you explain why cement tanks are considered traditional there? I learned this from Anna Savino, but I would love to hear your point of view as a winemaker. What geeky point could you give us about cement tanks, please?
So first of all, we need to consider the cement tanks were one of the most used tool to make wine in the 70s, 80s. And then with the wine revolution and the boom of the wine industry, it went lost because in different era we had first stainless tank, and then the new barrique, so new oak came in, and then there's been a time for amphora, and then a time for big botti, big barrel, and now cement is coming back. It's coming back because if you think a Langhe, so first of all, you need to think that Langhe is not about the style of winemaking. When you speak about Barbaresco and Langhe, it's all about the region, the terroir, so the soil, and the vineyard. If you have a great vineyard and you train your vineyard in an amazing way, then your job in the vineyard is much easier. The reason because we're using cement is because um, 20, 30 years ago, also 40, it was challenging to bring to have a grape at full ripening because the climate was pretty difficult. So in the 70s, 80s, Barolo Barbaresco were produced 3-4 times out of 10 vintages. Today, due to the climate change, every year we make a beautiful harvest. We can have a peak of super high quality, and you can have some very good vintages. But then today, the challenge for the winemaker is becoming to preserve the freshness. And cement plays a big role on it, because cement is a tool that during fermentation doesn't warm up, while actually fermenting in still a tank without temperature control, it's a conductor of temperature, so the whole tank is warming up. Secondly, during aging, cement it give a very slow aging. That means it keep the fruit bright and crispy. Oak is amazing. Oak is something that we cannot live without, because grape like Nebbiolo, they show beautifully in oak. And Barbaresco, it can be produced only in oak. There is no other tool allowed. But actually, the beauty of cement is to preserve the freshness, preserve the acidity, because wine aging in oak, you may have a drop of acidity. And, to have a long living wine is not the alcohol, because if you look at the German Riesling, they are like 9, 10, 11 degree. But to have a great wine, a fine wine, a long living, it's all about acidity and pH, which are like a balance. So I found actually my wines, they are in a perfect condition and perfect shape of working with the concrete.
Thank you. That's very interesting and very helpful to understand how cement tanks can help a winemaking technique to develop certain aromas or a profile in a wine. So my next question is, I have noticed in your wines that co-fermentations and whole cluster macerations plays a big role in your wines. For example, Foravia, I don't know if I am saying that correctly.
Your Italian is perfect.
Okay, thank you. And that's very similar to what we see in Beaujolais. What were your first thoughts about these methods, and why did you decide to follow this path?
Well, as a co-fermentation, we make only Memoria. That's the only co-ferment, and I will say the only blend we produce. All the other wines, they are single grape. And the beginning in 2015, Gabriele and I, we were producing 3 labels. There was a Barbera d'Alba, there was a Langhe Nebbiolo, and there was a Barbaresco. And then in 2018, I was very curious to make a whole bunch of fermentation. That was not due to fashion, but it was related to the climate change. I was feeling a little bit scared about having warmer and warmer vintages, and also more humid and wet vintages. So my goal was to preserve the fresh aroma of a Nebbiolo. And in 2018, we made for the first time a whole cluster fermentation from a 60%. So it's like a semi-carbonic. It was great. It was a wine that we really loved. And we call it a Foravia. Foravia in Piemonte's dialect means thinking out of the box. I never felt like keep doing what you've been doing, because time change and we also change. Every year I feel like I'm a better person, or at least I'm supposed to be a better person compared to last year, and never learn something new. So for a year was like opening the mind. Then Nebbiolo, I can preserve the fruit. Like it's like an explosion of strawberry, cherry. Keep the typical aroma of the Nebbiolo, like a dry roses, violet. But then at the same time, working with the semi-carbonic, it doesn't add any extra tannins, because Nebbiolo already has a lot of tannins. So actually, the stems are taking away a little bit of color. My wines are never dark. The stem are also taking away a little bit of alcohol, and it releases potassium, which is a salt. This kind of salt gives you a feeling of roundness. So Foravia became very quickly one of the 2 flagship wine of the winery, together with the Barbaresco and the Chardonnay. It's a Nebbiolo we really love. We make aging in exhausted barrique. I would say exhausted because we never buy new oak. I look at oak as something amazing, but you need to think that oak is like your stereo, your amplificator. If you listen music from the phone, it's okay, it's fine. But then when you listen music from a nice stereo, it's another thing. And same works with oak, because my job is 80% made in the vineyard, where we train our vineyard in a I call it in a clever agriculture. As a clever, I mean super sustainable. Some people call it biodynamic or in any other way. To me, the way of agriculture is not a marketing thing, but it's a lifestyle. When I used to work in a vineyard in Spain, it was a conventional winery. I had a side effect from the pesticide and herbicide. That day, I felt like if once I will ever make my wine, it will not come from anything added. So the idea to use exhausted oak is because we try to bring just the real expression, I will say the soul of the grape, into the bottle.
Wow, really interesting to know that. And how do you classify your Chardonnay wine? Because I know your wine does a time of skin contact, but I don't know how many, I don't know, hours or does skin contact. Do you still classify your Chardonnay as white, or do you classify it as an orange wine, or it's just to give more aromas? Is a skin contact in cold maceration, or what's your wine technique on that?
Our wine technique, generally speaking, is very basic. Every fermentation begins from spontaneous fermentation. That means we do, for every wine, we do a pied de couve. That means we pick like 5-6 cases of grape. So I'm speaking about less than 20 kilos of grape. We press them with a feet. And then about 2 to 3 days after, it's time to harvest. And then we use the pied de couve for the fermentation. Our Chardonnay has a very short skin contact, so I don't classify my Chardonnay as orange wine or skin contact. It has the DOC appellation, so it shows Langhe Chardonnay DOC on the bottle. It's very simple. We have a Chardonnay on a vineyard facing east in Neve. And Nebbiolo is the most important grape, but it's also very delicate, like a Pinot. So Nebbiolo needs to be in the best position. As you know, we grow vines on the east, south, and west. Might be some vineyard in the north, but they're not classified as a Barbaresco grape. Most of the time, it's a hazelnut. So we have a Chardonnay on eastern position. Nebbiolo is in the middle, and then right below there is a Chardonnay. Our terroir, it's mainly silt. Silt is a marine soil because million years ago, I was a child when at school I was studying the Pangea and, the moving of the continent. And Langhe used to be an ocean. So the underground soil is 50% silt, and then there is some limestone and also some clay. The clay may change more higher quantity if you are closer to the river, or it can be less if you're far away from the river. The point is the silt and limestone, it give you nice Chardonnay body, very long finishing, but you are lacking of acidity because when the grape reach to 13.5 degree alcohol, you are losing some freshness, you're losing some acidity. So I prefer to harvest a few days before to preserve a low alcohol, like 12.5. Vintage 24 was 12. This year I expect between 12.5 and 13. And then I do 2 days of skin contact in concrete. And then the wine carry on the fermentation without skin contact. The aging, it goes again in concrete. I don't use any barrique for the white wine. I'm more in favor to have a white, more on a fresh fruit, but also with body, minerality, and deliver also some sapidity and saltiness that come from the table.
Okay, well, that's a really technical point of view in enrich this conversation. So I will change a little bit the way of our conversation and looking ahead to the future of Cantina Morra Gabriele. Are there any new projects in progress? Have you and Gabriele discussed adding new labels? I know you produce Chardonnay and this blend of Freisa and Nebbiolo, but there are trendy grapes now in Langhe. For example, Langhe Riesling, Nacheta, or Arnais are becoming very popular. Are you planning to add new labels or purchasing grapes or a vineyard?
Alberto, it can be. Today, this is what we have. And maybe in the future, if something comes, it could be. So far, the vineyard is pretty small and completely packed. And I'm very happy for the volume that we're producing. We can keep track of every stage. So maybe, I'm a fan of Riesling. So if one day I will find a vineyard of Riesling, and maybe I can convince my winery partner, Gabriele, to do a Riesling, it could be a good opportunity. To be honest, I don't know, because the climate is too warm to produce a Riesling, but you never know what may come.
Yeah, climate change in the Langhe, I know it's been a problem in the last couple of years.
Yeah, every year is different. You take, for example, the last 4 vintages, and they're all different. There's never the same. So we behave in a different way in the vineyard up to the vintage. So we have our style of making wine, but then at the end, every year we change something according to the vintage. Like for example, you have a hot vintage and the skin is very thin, then you don't go for over extraction. And then maybe some gray vintage where the skin is very thick. Then it's like driving a Ferrari. You can have fun. So every year is like that, and I'm also a pretty creativity person. So every year I try to do something new. Last year we made just one barrique of Brutal wine. Brutal was 100% Nebbiolo from 00 Vineyard and Bagneri. So 2 years ago, no, it was in 2021, we made a Chardonnay 100% skin contact. It was a smaller production. So we always keep an eye moving forward. And to be honest, I like to work also with a partner around the world who are people with an open mind.
Yeah, of course. And I want to talk about your Barbaresco, your flagship wine. I know you produce this wine with a blend of 3 vineyards. So
Yeah.
if you can talk us about how do you differentiate, for example, the wine that I know you blend is a blend of 2 vineyards, but how the Fausani, the Vernino, and the Bello vineyards produce this wine, how the soils, how it's produced. If you could be geeky in this point, so we can really understand your wine.
Well, as you said, we make only one Barbaresco. We don't do single vineyard. And it's a blend of different vineyard. And we felt to do so because we feel the blending different vineyard, we really have the perfect wine in our point of view. If you see the 3 different vineyard, take for example a vineyard facing east, it's where usually you get the most fruity aromatic grape, maybe less powerful, less bold color, darker color. East is where you get just the sun of the morning, so the vineyard doesn't under the sun of the afternoon, which is the warmest. While if you take a vineyard in the south, Then you have all sun all day long. And usually, in the 70s, 80s, also early 90s, people were used to buy vineyard in November because at the beginning or middle of November, we used to have some snow. And people were choosing the vineyard to buy up to where the snow was melting first, because that was the best position. That's where the sun was hitting first. Today, the south is still great, is still amazing, but with the hot vintages, sometimes it can be very challenging. So we are more moving to the eastern position. While the west is still very important because it give you maybe it gives to me less quantity. It's also old vineyard, so it give me less quantity, but it give you more ripe fruit, more concentration. The wine are more yummy, more powerful. So the combination of the three, it's a perfect balance. Because the style of our wine, we've been speaking about easy drinking, fruity, crispness. I told you before, we make a traditional wine because our approach of winemaking and also in the vineyard is very classic. It's very traditional. But then what comes in the bottle is contemporary because what we like to drink, it's fruity and aromatic. That means also complexity, very integrating, fascinating. Then in the mouth, you have the drinkability. So it's a balance of finesse and elegance together with the powerful. And that comes from a very healthy vineyard, from a well-managed vineyard. Because I'm not an enologist, and not even Gabriele, and think that Gabriele is a truffle hunter. He has a lot of dogs. Anna Savino knows some of them. And basically, when the harvest is done, Gabriele ran away. I don't see him anymore. And I'm almost alone in the vineyard making the wine. Sorry, in the vineyard making the wine. So what we do is having a fine and elegant wine, but also approachable in young age. Also wine that can age in time, but they can be approachable. So if I need to describe what is my idea of Barbaresco, it's a gray wine where you have a very crispy and aromatic nose. It changes a lot in the glass. We keep a very low sulfites, so it's a wine that develops a lot in the glass. I never make championship wine. I don't make dark wine. You don't feel oak. You don't feel chocolate, vanilla, spices, but you feel more the fruit, the typical notes of Nebbiolo. That's what we love. If you drink our Barbaresco, I need to give you a bottle. Then you're gonna find a nice, powerful wine with aromatic nose, but still very elegant. And you can finish the bottle. You don't even realize it.
Yeah, that's really amazing how you manage to present a wine that it's still traditional, but at the same time contemporary, and that it preserve what is Barbaresco at the same time. So you spoke about Gabriele. Could you share a little bit about your friendship with Gabriele and how it grew into a winemaking partnership?
Oh my God, with Gabriele is like a marriage, When you have a binary partner, it's like having a wife because you share everything together. So you have a fight, but you laugh as well. We met in a restaurant where he was a customer. He used to drink always the same wine. He was in love with that label. And I still remember that one day I just showed up with a bottle of Dolcetto. He was blind. And I told him, if you don't like it, I will be very happy to drink it. And he loved it. So our friendship began. And then we share the same idea of wine. He's a guy that takes care more of the tractor job. So he takes care of a treatment, cutting the grass. Everything is all about machine and tractor. I take care, everything is about the job that needs to be made by hand. And also in the winery, most of the time, I'm the one taking care of the wine. But of course, he's always involved in every decision we are going to take, and also in bottling and other stuff. When you have a partner in the winery, and I feel to be always very straightforward, communication is number one. So, like in a relationship, is all about understanding each other, try to get the try to come to the point. Sometimes you may have different point of vision, but at the same time, for me, he was also one of the key person because being used to be a sommelier in fine dining and restaurant, being working vineyard, making the wine, then you have your own idea. But he was also my kind of person to share forth and to giving wine blind, to also compare each other and have a kind of a balance for me. So it was a perfect match, and we're doing great. We call each other like 3-4 times a day. I think it's pretty much like it can be a wife or an husband.
Well, I'm sorry, I was laughing because it made me so. It was so funny to hear that it was a marriage.
Yeah, it's amazing. We began from scratch. So we put a little investment inside. Of course, we had some tough time, but we also had a lot of joy. And we began from a garage, and then we built a winery. Today, I and Gabriele as well, we feel lucky because we're doing what we love. We didn't have a previous generation making wine, but we pay a lot of respect to the region. Because today we're making wine from vineyard 60, 70, or 40, 50 years old. That means that somebody in the 70s, 80s, and so on, they've been doing a great job. Because if the vineyard is still productive today, it's because somebody at that time made an amazing job.
Yeah, of course, and that's really inspiring for a lot of us who are listening to your story and Gabriela's too.
Yeah, we like to make wine to be drunk. One of the key person for me was a guy in Barbaresco that still today is running a winery and is making one of the most interesting Barbaresco. So I've been very close to the Barbaresco mentality, and this is the place where I feel to be. This is my home. Now it's more than 10 years I'm living in Barbaresco. And Barbaresco is an amazing village. It's pretty small, but has a beautiful hills, nice people, lovely wine bar with the lovely people. Barbaresco is also very close to the river, so as a special climate, they give you always more primary wine, the more fruity, the more fruit forward and approachable, even keeping the powerful. We always had the feeling to keep the tradition. Don't make wine, for fancy or something crazy, but just enough to make something tasting good. Have your own vision. Don't make a copy of anything, but still recognize that this is an amazing wine.
Yeah, I can confirm that Barbaresco is amazing, and I have tasted so many Barbaresco producers, including yours, your wines that are amazing, and every producer is different, but every one of is still in the same way, respecting tradition, but not over oaky, always fruity. I don't know. Barbaresco is in my top wines, always in my cellar. So that's good to hear from you too, that you follow that way too.
Thank you, Alberto. Barbaresco, it's the kind of bottle that when you're leaving from Langhe, then you can grab a bottle and put it on the plane.
Yeah, now that Italy has this rule that you can bring a bottle of wine, I will do in my next trip. So,
Exactly. I knew you were ready for it.
so finally, where we can find your wines? For example, are they available in the US or in other international markets?
Yeah, we do 70% is export. So we have a very nice partner in New York. There is also delivering in New Jersey, Philadelphia, and Delaware. That's the only states we're working in the United States. And then in Europe, pretty much everywhere, and some in Australia as well, Czech Republic, South Korea. So it's pretty a little bit all around.
Okay, that's amazing that we can find your wines almost all over the world. So, a foodie question: how would you match your wines or how would you pair your wines with an international cuisine, let's say a dish, and then with a traditional Italian dish?
Foravia has a special place in my heart. And Foravia, it's a wine that my idea was to match also with fish. I'm more in favor of eating fish than not meat. So it's a Nebbiolo that perfectly fit to fish dishes like steamed sea bream or caciucco from Tuscany, the fish soup with tomato sauce and some toasted bread. Or if you think at the Barbaresco, it can be a great pairing also with the chicken thigh or with a turkey during Thanksgiving Day. So Barbaresco will pair for anything is related to meat, pasta, or also some more Asian food as well. So if you like to use some spices. For example, from Mexico, I'm always been in love with the Mexican cuisine, and I think for Avia it's a perfect match. You have a touch of spicy, touch of chili, sorry. So I think Foravia will be really amazing for that.
Bravissimo, Stefano.
Thank you, Alberto.
So thank you guys. This was so nice. Alberto, we can hear literally that you are in love with this winery and all the context. Really, thank you so much. And I sincerely thank you also for your time and effort to be in the same place and for doing these interviews. How are you doing, guys, after this amazing interview?
Beatrice, everything was amazing. I hope I'm not being too technical. And
No, that was perfect.
I hope I shared some of my passion for the winemaking, also the joy of carrying on my own path.
I'm really happy for the interview, Beatrice. Thank you.
Perfect. For those who are interested to participate, just send us a DM through our Instagram or mail our Italian Wine Podcast producer at info@italianwinepodcast.com. Thank you everyone for listening in, and thank you so much again, Stefano and Alberto. And this is a wrap. Bye!
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through italianwinepodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.